Hare Krishna, everyone. It's a little bit tilted. It's not straight. A little bit. There you go. There you go. Hare Krishna. Welcome back to the live studios here at Wisteria Cottage, just outside of Folkestone, in between Folkestone and Canterbury, in the countryside with horses in the fields, and it's so nice, and the weather's great, and we wish you were here, and you are. So, welcome to Kent, UK. We're about to launch into a wonderful section in which Krishna himself speaks to Lord Brahma, who has just seen him face to face after doing his intense penances in devotion. And we're going to hear some really wonderful things now from Krishna. But before we do, we're going to continue with our vow of chanting the wonderful prayer by Sanatana Goswami, glorifying the Srimad-Bhagavatam, full of nectar and also deep philosophical realizations about what the Srimad-Bhagavatam is. So here's the meditation. Srimad-Bhagavata Mahima Stotram. Sarva Shastabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidvandoditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Bhattaya Prema Varshak Shadayate Sarvadasa Vasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Mannishtadaga Madbhagya Madananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy. I bow down to you. Asadu, saduta dayin, adini chochata kara, hanamun chagadachin mam, premnarit gandayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So, Krishna is about to speak to Lord Brahma after Brahma has seen him for the first time. The beautiful personality of Godhead addressed Lord Brahma. Text 20, sorry. Good things we have a scholar in the crowd. This is Shamagori, who's full of realizations. And she's also a scholar, but she won't admit it. So we don't bother to try to tell her that. But anyway. And Rhiannon's here from Wales. Hare Krishna, Haribo. And we have Rati Manjari here from the Netherlands. She's a star in her own right in many ways. We have Bhakta Matt, Bell Roberts, originally from South Africa, but kind of like an American since he's been there since he was 5 years old. And he's traveling with me, and boy, is he good. Hare Krishna. Am I lucky or what? Hare Krishna. Okay. The beautiful personality of Godhead addressed Lord Brahma. O Brahma, impregnated with the Vedas, I am very much pleased with your long accumulated penance with the desire for creation. Hardly I am pleased with the pseudo-mystics. Purport. I mean, Krishna is not wasting any time to get on the case of the Mayavadis. You know, the first words out of his mouth in the universe. Isn't it? Purport. There are two kinds of penance. One for sense gratification and the other for self-realization. There are many pseudo-mystics who undergo severe penances for their own satisfaction, and there are others who undergo severe penances for the satisfaction of the senses of the Lord. But penances like those undertaken to discover nuclear weapons will never satisfy the Lord. By nature's own way, everyone has to meet death. And if such a process of death is accelerated by anyone's penances, there is no satisfaction for the Lord. The Lord wants every one of his parts and parcels to attain eternal life and bliss by coming home to Godhead. And the whole material creation is meant for that objective. Brahma underwent severe penances for that purpose, namely, to regulate the process of creation so that the Lord might be satisfied. Therefore, the Lord was very much pleased with him. And for this, Brahma was impregnated with Vedic knowledge. The ultimate purpose of Vedic knowledge, is to know the Lord and not to misuse the knowledge for any other purposes. Those who do not utilize Vedic knowledge for that purpose are known as Kuta yogis, or pseudo-transcendentalists, who spoil their lives with ulterior motives. Text 21. I wish you good luck, O Brahma. You may ask from me, the giver of all benediction, all that you may desire. You may know that the ultimate benediction, as the result of all penances, is to see me by realization. Purport. The ultimate realization of the Supreme Truth is knowing and seeing face to face the personality of Godhead. Realization of the impersonal Brahman and localized Paramatma features of the personality of Godhead is not ultimate realization. When one realizes the Supreme Lord, one does not struggle hard to perform penances to achieve some higher realization. The next stage of life is to discharge devotional service to the Lord, just to satisfy Him. In other words, one who has realized and seen the Supreme Lord has attained all perfection because everything is included in that highest perfectional stage. The impersonalists and pseudo-mystics, however, cannot reach this stage. Text 22. The highest perfectional ingenuity is the personal perception of my abode. And this has been possible because of your submissive attitude in the performance of severe penance according to my order. Purport. The highest perfectional stage of life is to know the Lord by actual perception, by the grace of the Lord. This can be attained by anyone, by everyone, who is willing to discharge the acts of devotional service to the Lord as enjoined in the revealed scriptures that are standard and accepted by the bona fide acharyas, spiritual masters. For example, the Bhagavad Gita is the approved Vedic literature accepted by all the great acharyas such as Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhva, Chaitanya, Vishwanath, Baladev, Siddhanta, Saraswati, and many others. In that Bhagavad Gita, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, asks that one always be mindful of Him, always be His devotee, always worship Him only, and always bow down before the Lord. And by doing so, one is sure to go back home, back to Godhead, without any doubt. In other places, also, the same order is there, that one give up all other engagements and fully surrender unto the Lord without hesitation. And the Lord will give such a devotee all protection. These are the secrets of attaining the highest perfectional stage. Lord Brahma exactly followed these principles without any superiority complex, and thus he attained the highest perfectional stage of experiencing the abode of the Lord and the Lord Himself with all His paraphernalia. Impersonal realization of the effulgence of the Lord's body is not the highest perfectional stage, nor is the stage of Paramatma realization. The word manishita is significant. Everyone is falsely or factually proud of his so-called learning, but the Lord says that the highest perfectional stage of learning is to know Him and His abode, devoid of all illusion. Text 23. O sinless Brahma, you may know from me that it was I who first ordered you to undergo penance when you were perplexed in your duty. Such penance is my heart and soul. I'll repeat that. Such penance is my heart and soul, and therefore penance and I are non-different. Purport. The penance by which one can see the personality of Godhead face to face is to be understood as devotional service to the Lord and nothing else. Because only by discharging devotional service in transcendental love can one approach the Lord. Such penance is the internal potency of the Lord and is non-different from Him. Such acts of internal potency are exhibited by non-attachment for material enjoyment. The living entities are encaged in the conditions of material bondage because of their propensity for overlordship. But by engagement in the devotional service of the Lord, one becomes detached from this enjoying spirit. The devotees automatically become detached from worldly enjoyment, and this detachment is the result of perfect knowledge. Therefore, the penance of devotional service includes knowledge and detachment. And that is the manifestation of the transcendental potency. One cannot enjoy material illusory prosperity if he desires to return home, back to Godhead. One who has no information of the transcendental bliss in the association of the Lord foolishly desires to enjoy this temporary material happiness. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that if someone sincerely wants to see the Lord and at the same time wants to enjoy this material world, he is considered to be a fool only. One who wants to remain here in the material world for material enjoyment has no business entering into the eternal kingdom of God. The Lord favors such a foolish devotee by snatching all that he may possess in the material world. If such a foolish devotee of the Lord tries to recoup his position, then the merciful Lord again snatches away all that he may have possessed. By such repeated failures in material prosperity, he becomes very unpopular with his family members and friends. In the material world, the family members and friends honor persons who are very successful in accumulating wealth by any means. The foolish devotee of the Lord is thus put into forcible penance by the grace of the Lord, and at the end, the devotee becomes perfectly happy, being engaged in the service of the Lord. Therefore, penance in devotional service of the Lord, either by voluntary submission or by being forced by the Lord, is necessary for attaining perfection, and thus such penance is the internal potency of the Lord. One cannot, however, be engaged in the penance of devotional service without being completely free from all sins. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, only a person who is completely free from all reactions of sins can engage himself in the worship of the Lord. Brahmaji was sinless, and therefore he fully discharged the advice of the Lord, tapa, tapa, and the Lord, being satisfied with him, awarded him the desired result. Therefore, only love and penance combined can please the Lord, and thus one is able to attain his complete mercy. He directs the sinless, and the sinless devotee attains the highest perfection of life. Text 24. I create this cosmos by such penance. I maintain it by the same energy, and I withdraw it all by the same energy. Therefore, the potent power is penance only. Purport. In executing penance, one must be determined to return home back to Godhead and must decide to undergo all types of tribulations for that end. Even for material prosperity, name and fame, one has to undergo severe types of penance. Otherwise, no one can become an important figure in this material world. Why then would there not be severe types of penance for the perfection of devotional service? An easygoing life and attainment of perfection and transcendental realization cannot go together. The Lord is more clever than any living entity. Therefore, he wants to see how painstaking the devotee is in devotional service. The order is received from the Lord, either directly or through the bona fide spiritual master, and to execute that order, however painstaking, is the severe type of penance. One who follows the principle rigidly is sure to achieve success in attaining the Lord's mercy. Text 25. Lord Brahma said, O personality of Godhead, you are situated in every living entity's heart as the supreme director, and therefore you are aware of all endeavors by your superior intelligence without any hindrance whatsoever. Purport. The Bhagavad Gita confirms that the Lord is situated in everyone's heart as the witness, and that he is thus the supreme director of sanction. The director is not the enjoyer of the fruits of action, but without the Lord's sanction, no one can enjoy. For example, in a prohibited area, a habituated drunkard puts forward his application to the director of drinking. And the director, considering his case, sanctions only a certain amount of liquor for drinking. Similarly, the whole material world is full of many drunkards, in the sense that each and every one of the living entities has something in his mind to enjoy, and everyone desires the fulfillment of his desires very strongly. The Almighty Lord, being very kind to the living entity, as the Father is to the Son, as the Father is kind to the Son, fulfills the living entity's desire for his childish satisfaction. With such desires in mind, the living entity does not actually enjoy, but he serves the bodily whims unnecessarily, without profit. The drunkard does not derive any profit out of drinking, but because he has become a servant of the drinking habit and does not wish to get out of it, the merciful Lord gives him all facilities to fulfill such desires. The impersonalists recommend that one should become desireless, or in other words, that one should banish desires altogether. That is impossible. No one can banish desires altogether, because desiring is a symptom of a living entity. Without having desires, a living entity would be dead, which he is not. Prabhupada's so poetic, huh? Therefore, living conditions and desire go together. Perfection of desires may be achieved when one desires to serve the Lord, and the Lord also desires that every living entity banish all personal desires and cooperate with his desires. That is the last instruction of the Bhagavad Gita. Brahmaji agreed to this proposal, and therefore he is given the responsible post of creating generations in the vacant universe. Oneness with the Lord therefore consists of dovetailing one's desires with the desires of the Supreme Lord. That makes for the perfection of all desires. The Lord, as the Supersoul in the heart of every living being, knows what is in the mind of each living entity, and no one can do anything without the knowledge of the Lord within. By his superior intelligence, the Lord gives everyone the chance to fulfill his desires to the fullest extent, and the resultant reaction is also rewarded by the Lord, awarded by the Lord. 26. In spite of that, my Lord, I am praying to you to kindly fulfill my desire. May I please be informed, in spite of your transcendental form, may I please be informed how, in spite of your transcendental form, you assume the mundane form, although you have no such form at all? 27. And please inform me how you, by your own self, manifest different energies for annihilation, generation, acceptance, and maintenance by combination and permutation. Purport. The whole manifestation is the Lord himself by diffusion of his different energies only, namely the internal, external, and marginal. Just as the sunlight is the manifestation of the energy of the sun planet, such energy is simultaneously one with and different from the Lord, just as the sunshine is simultaneously one with and different from the sun planet. The energies are acting by combination and permutation by the indication of the Lord, and the acting agents, like Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, are also different incarnations of the Lord. In other words, there is nothing but the Lord, and still the Lord is different from all such manifestive activities. How it is so will be explained later on. We're approaching now. We're approaching the 4 seed verses of the Bhagavatam, which is the basis of the whole rest of the Bhagavatam. Text 28. O Master of all energies, please tell me philosophically all about them. You play like a spider that covers itself with its own energy, and your determination is infallible. Purport. By the inconceivable energy of the Lord, every creative element has its own potencies, known as the potency of the element, potency of knowledge, and potency of different actions and reactions. By a combination of such potencies of the Lord, there is the creation of the cosmic manifestation, its maintenance, and its annihilation in due course of time by different agents, namely Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara. Brahma creates, Vishnu maintains, and Lord Shiva destroys. But all such agents and creative energies are emanations from the Lord. And as such, there is nothing except the Lord, or the one supreme source of different diversities. The exact example is the spider and spider's web. The web is created by the spider, and it is maintained by the spider. And as soon as the spider likes, the whole thing is wound up within the spider. The spider is covered within the web. If an insignificant spider is so powerful as to act according to its will, why can't the Supreme Being act by his supreme will in the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the cosmic manifestation? By the grace of the Lord, a devotee like Brahma, or one in his chain of disciplic succession, can understand how the Almighty Personality of Godhead eternally engages in his transcendental pastimes in the regions of different energies. Text 29. Please tell me, so that I may be taught in the matter by the instruction of the Personality of Godhead, and may thus act instrumentally to generate living entities without being conditioned by such activities. Purport. Brahmaji does not want to become a speculator, dependent on the strength of his personal knowledge and conditioned to material bondage. Everyone should know in clear consciousness that one is, in the execution of all activities, an instrument. A conditioned soul is instrumental in the hands of the external energy, Gunamayi Maya, or the illusory energy of the Lord. And in the liberated stage, the living entity is instrumental to the will of the Personality of Godhead directly. To be instrumental to the direct will of the Lord is the natural constitutional position of the living entity, whereas to be an instrument in the hands of the illusory energy of the Lord is material bondage for the living entity. In that conditioned state, the living entity speculates on the absolute truth and its different activities. But in the unconditioned stage, the living entity directly receives knowledge from the Lord, and such a liberated soul acts flawlessly without any speculative habit. The Bhagavad Gita 10:10-11 confirms emphatically that the pure devotees who are constantly engaged in the loving transcendental service of the Lord are directly advised by the Lord, so much so that the devotee unwaveringly makes progress on the path back home, back to Godhead. Pure devotees of the Lord are therefore not proud of their definite progress, whereas the non-devotee speculator is in the darkness of the illusory energy and is very much proud of his misleading knowledge based on speculation without any definite path. Lord Brahma wanted to be saved from that pitfall of pride, although he was posted in the most exalted position within the universe. Text 30. O my Lord, the unborn. You have shaken hands with me just as a friend does with a equal, as if equal in position. I shall be engaged in the creation of different types of living entities, and I shall be occupied in your service. That all this may not give rise to pride, as if I were the Supreme. Purport. Lord Brahma is definitely situated in the humor of friendship with the Lord. Every living being is eternally related with the personality of Godhead in one of five. We have already discussed these 5 kinds of humors in relationship with the personality of Godhead. It is clearly exhibited herein that Lord Brahma is related to the personality of Godhead in the transcendental humor of friendship. A pure devotee may be related with the Lord in any one of the transcendental humors, even in the humor of parenthood. But the devotee of the Lord is always a although entrusted with the most exalted post of creating different grades of living entities, is still conscious of his position, that he is neither the Supreme Lord nor supremely powerful. It is possible that he is neither. It is possible that some extremely powerful personality within or without the universe may sometimes show more power than the Lord himself. Still, the pure devotee knows that this power is a vibhuti, delegated by the Lord. And such a delegated powerful living entity is never independent. Sri Hanumanji crossed the Indian Ocean by jumping over the sea, and Lord Sri Ramachandra engaged himself in marching over the bridge. Of course, this bridge, he floated stones on the water. Sometimes the Lord gives extraordinary powers to his devotee, but the devotee knows always that the power belongs to the personality of Godhead, and that the devotee is only an instrument. The pure devotee is never puffed up like the non-devotee class of men. Because he is a pure devotee, he would never, like the non-devotee with the poor fund of knowledge, have the audacity to think of becoming one with the Lord. Poor people with a poor fund of knowledge should take lessons from Brahma when they are puffed up with the false notion of becoming God. Factually, Lord Brahma does not create the living entities. In the beginning of the creation, he is empowered to give different work during but he is entrusted with the task of giving the living entities different grades of bodies so that they can work accordingly. And still, he is conscious that he is only instrumental, so that he may not think of himself as the supremely powerful Lord. Devotees of the Lord are engaged in the specific duty offered by the Lord, and such duties are successfully carried out without hindrance, because they are ordained by the Lord. The credit for success goes not to the doer, but to the Lord. But persons with a poor fund of knowledge take the credit for success into their own accounts and give nothing to the account of the Lord. That is the symptom of the non-devotee class of men. Of course, they don't take credit for their failures. They blame the Lord for their failures, take credit for whatever they do for themselves. Text 31. The personality of Godhead said, "Knowledge about me, as described in the scriptures, is very confidential, and it has to be realized in conjunction with devotional service. The necessary paraphernalia verse. And therefore the personality of Godhead replied to his four principal inquiries in four important statements, which are known as the original Bhagavatam in 4 verses. These were Brahma's questions. 1. What are the forms of your Lord, both in matter and in transcendence? 2. To the answers to this verse under discussion, wherein the Lord informs Brahma that knowledge of Him, the Supreme Absolute Truth, as it is stated in the revealed scriptures, is very subtle and cannot be understood unless one is self-realized by the grace of the Lord. The Lord says that Brahma may take the answers as He explained. Out of many liberated souls, someone may be qualified to know the personality of Godhead. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is also said by the Lord Himself that out of many hundreds of thousands of people, one may try for perfection in human life. And out of many liberated souls, one may know Him as He is. It may be attained not enter into the mystery of the Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, one cannot understand the personality of Godhead unless one becomes a devotee and discharges his devotional service. This mystery is love of Godhead. Shall I repeat that? This is really important. Lord Krishna instructed Rahasyam means devotional service. Lord Krishna instructed Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita because he found Arjuna to be a devotee and friend. Without such qualifications, one cannot enter into the mystery of the Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, one cannot understand the personality of Godhead unless one becomes a devotee and discharges devotional service. This mystery is love of Godhead. Therein lies the main qualification for knowing the mystery of the personality of Godhead. And to attain the stage of transcendental love of Godhead, one must practice the regulative principles of devotional service. Practicing these regulative principles is called Vidhi Bhakti, or regulative devotional service of the Lord. And they can be practiced by a neophyte with his present senses. Such regulative principles are mainly based on hearing and chanting of the glories of the Lord. And such hearing and chanting of the glories of the Lord can be made possible in the association of devotees only. Who else would want to sit around like this in a cottage somewhere in the countryside just hearing about the Srimad-Bhagavatam? Huh? Unless you're devotees. It's not possible. Lord Chaitanya therefore recommended 5 main principles for attaining perfection in devotional service of the Lord. The first is association with the devotees, hearing. Second is chanting the glories of the Lord. Third, hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam from the pure devotee. Notice the association with devotees and hearing are both, he's got hearing in parentheses next to the first association with devotees has got in parentheses hearing. We don't just associate by going to a skating rink, and twirling, going around and around on the ice or something. Or going to the pool hall or the movies, whatever. This is such an important section. I'm going to repeat this whole thing. I'm going back up just a little bit here. To attain the stage of transcendental love of Godhead, one must practice the regulative principles of devotional service. Now just try to understand what this means. There's a class of devotee who say that you cannot get love of Godhead by following the regulative principles. Subtly, psychologically, what they're saying is, those of you who follow principles, you're less advanced. We're more advanced because we don't have to anymore. They're making it up, actually. But here, the secret is being given by Prabhupada in a very profound way. He's saying, one must, to attain the stage of transcendental love of Godhead, one must practice the regulated principles of devotional service. Because they purify your heart to the point where you can gradually come to the point of pure love, where you don't need to follow them, but you follow them anyway, out of love, not just because you have to. Practicing these regulative principles is called Vidhi Bhakti, or regulative devotional service of the Lord, and they can be practiced by a neophyte with his present senses. Such regulative principles are mainly based on hearing and chanting of the glories of the Lord. See? So if you think you don't need to follow, you're beyond it, then you stop hearing and chanting. That's what happens. The first thing that happens is you stop hearing and chanting, and yes, you go boom. And such hearing and chanting of the glories of the Lord can be made possibly in the association of devotees only. But these other devotees want to go and be alone and just develop their relationship with Krishna. Lord Chaitanya therefore recommended 5 main principles for attaining perfection in the devotional service of the Lord. The first is association with devotees, parentheses, hearing. Second is chanting the glories of the Lord. Third, hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam from the pure devotee. Fourth, residing in a holy place connected with the Lord. And fifth, worshipping the deity of the Lord with devotion. Such rules and regulations are parts of devotional service. So, as requested by Lord Brahma, the personality of Godhead will explain all about the 4 questions put forward by Brahma and others also, which are parts and parcels of the same questions. Text 32. All of me, all of me, namely my actual eternal form and my transcendental existence, color, qualities, and activities, let all be awakened within you by factual realization out of my causeless mercy. Purport. The secret of success in understanding the intricacies of knowledge of the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is the causeless mercy of the Lord. Even in the material world, the father of many sons discloses the secret of his position to the pet sons. The father discloses the confidence under the son whom he thinks worthy. An important man in the social order can be known by his mercy only. Similarly, one must be very dear to the Lord in order to know the Lord. The Lord is unlimited. No one can know him completely. But one's advancement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord can make one eligible to know the Lord. Here we can see that the Lord is sufficiently pleased with Brahmaji, and therefore he offers his causeless mercy to him so that Brahmaji may have the factual realization of the Lord by his mercy only. In the Vedas also, it is said that a person cannot know the absolute truth personality of Godhead simply by dint of mundane education or intellectual gymnastics. One can know the supreme truth if one has unflinching faith in the bona fide spiritual master as well as in the Lord. Such a faithful person, even though illiterate in the mundane sense, can know the Lord automatically by the mercy of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita also, it is said that the Lord reserves the right of not being exposed to everyone, and he keeps himself concealed from the faithless by his Yogamaya potency. To the faithful, the Lord reveals himself in his form, qualities, and pastimes. The Lord is not formless, as wrongly conceived by the impersonalist, but his form is not like one that we have experienced. The Lord discloses his form even to the extent of measurement to his pure devotees. And that is the meaning of Yavan, as explained by Srila Jiva Goswami, the greatest scholar of Srimad-Bhagavatam. The Lord discloses the transcendental nature of his existence. The mundane wranglers make mundane conceptions of the form of the Lord. It is said in the revealed scriptures that the Lord has no mundane form. Therefore, persons with a poor fund of knowledge conclude that he must be formless. They cannot distinguish between mundane form and spiritual form. According to them, without a mundane form, one must be formless. This conclusion is also mundane because formlessness is the opposite conception of form. Negation of the mundane conception does not establish a transcendental fact. In other words, you can't define something by saying what it's not. Negation of the mundane conception does not establish a transcendental fact. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that the Lord has a transcendental form and that he can utilize any one of his senses for any purpose. For example, he can eat with his eyes. He can see with his leg. In the mundane conception of form, one cannot eat with one's eyes or see with one's leg. That is the difference between a mundane body and a spiritual body of Satchidananda. A spiritual body is not formless. It is a different type of body of which we cannot conceive with our present mundane senses. Formless, therefore, means devoid of mundane form, or possessing a spiritual body of which the non-devotee can have no conception by the speculative method. The Lord discloses to the devotee his unlimited varieties of transcendental bodies, all equal with one another, but with different kinds of bodily features. Some of the transcendental bodies of the Lord are blackish, and some of them are whitish. Some of them are reddish. Some are yellowish. Some of them are four-handed, and some of them two-handed. Some of them are like a fish, and some are like a lion. All these different transcendental bodies of the Lord, without any differential category, are disclosed to the devotees of the Lord by the mercy of the Lord. And thus the impersonalists' false arguments claiming the formlessness of the Supreme Truth do not appeal to a devotee of the Lord, even though such a devotee may not be very advanced in devotional service. The Lord has unlimited numbers of transcendental qualities, and one of them is his affection for his unalloyed devotee. In the history of the mundane world, we can appreciate his transcendental qualities. The Lord incarnates himself for the protection of his devotees and for the annihilation of the faithless. His activities are in relationship with his devotees. Srimad-Bhagavatam is full of such activities of the Lord in relationship with his devotees. And the non-devotees have no knowledge of such pastimes. The Lord lifted the Govardhan hill when he was only 7 years old and protected his pure devotees at Vrindavan from the wrath of Indra, who was over-flooding the place with rain. Now, this lifting of Govardhan hill by a 7-year-old boy may be unbelievable for the faithless, but for the devotees it is absolutely believable. The devotee believes in the almighty potency of the Lord, while the faithless say that the Lord is almighty, but do not believe it. I'll say that again, that's great. The Lord believes in the almighty potency of the Lord, while the faithless say that the Lord is almighty, but do not believe it. Such men with a poor fund of knowledge do not know that the Lord is the Lord eternally, and that one cannot become the Lord by meditation for millions of years, or by mental speculation for billions of years. The impersonal interpretation of the mundane wranglers is completely refuted in this verse, because it is clearly stated here that the Supreme Lord has his qualities, form, pastimes, and everything else that a person has. All these descriptions of the transcendental nature of the personality of Godhead are factual realizations by the devotee of the Lord. And by the causeless mercy of the Lord, they are revealed to his pure devotee and to no one else. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. What a purport. Whoa. That's breathtaking. So we're going to stop here. We're stopping right at the first verse of the summary of the Bhagavatam, the first seed verses of the Bhagavatam. We'll read at least the seed verses tomorrow. Okay, so here we are. Wisteria Cottage, just outside of Folkestone, Kent, UK, with pure devotees of the Lord, whose tears are proving that they are real, that they have faith in the Lord, and that the glories of the Lord are touching their hearts to the core, and therefore only by doing this with the devotees can you taste Krishna consciousness. And I want to make one more point. This point about seeing the Lord face for face, this is non-different. This is non-different. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, if you can just muster one tear hearing the glories of Gaura, Lord Chaitanya, Krishna, then Lord Nityananda will give you everything, no matter who you are. That's the price for admission. It's as simple as that. So pure, so wonderful, so marvelous. So, I'm sure there's a few things that stuck out in the minds during that reading. Anybody have any reflections? Anybody want to repeat something that's stuck in your minds? Or are you just so blown away with ecstasy that you can't speak? And we're going to have to just sit here and relish. Shamagori is going to say something. In this last purport,
it was so fantastic.
It was so fantastic.
What occurred to me that
It occurred to her that
speculating about God,
the
the reason why it doesn't work
reason why it doesn't work is that we only use our mundane faculties.
perceptions and faculties.
Yes, perceptions and faculties.
But obviously Krishna
But obviously Krishna is
is beyond that.
beyond that.
So
Therefore we cannot know anything about Krishna by speculating.
because it's within the mundane realm.
Yes.
It's not.
Only therefore the conclusion is only if he agrees. And he agrees only if someone does pure devotional service, because that's where his heart is. That's the whole point of these verses. He just told Brahma that the penance with devotion is my heart, and therefore I'm coming to see you because you did penance out of devotion for me. So you can't do devotion or penance just to get some political position, power, or some quality that can make you, special in the eyes of others, or for any other personal reason, personal motive.
The other interesting thing that stuck out for me was that the first thing Krishna says, that good luck. Did he say that?
She's saying that the other thing that stuck out to her is the first thing that Krishna said to Brahma is good luck, wishing him good fortune.
Yeah. Just today, somebody was in the shop.
Just today someone was in the shop,
And I kind of advised him to get a Bhagavad Gita.
kind of advised him to get a Bhagavad Gita.
And he said, no. And I said,
And he said, oh no. And she said, even
just for good luck.
even just for good luck.
And his response was that I don't need good luck. I achieve everything by hard work.
He says, I don't need good luck. I achieve everything by hard work. Yeah, there you go. Work is worship. That's the philosophy. Protestant ethic.
But it's so interesting that the first thing we should say is, yes, you need good luck actually.
Yes. Yes. First thing he said, you need good fortune. You need good luck. And that fortune comes by the association of the devotees. Even if you don't know what you're doing, if you associate with the devotees, and some lifetime after that, you will get the association of devotees in the way that you will be able to know and appreciate, and therefore make tangible advancement.
So how is that? Brahma didn't really have any devotee association?
Previous lives.
Oh, okay.
You can't get the position of Brahma unless you've done something extraordinary. Like you can get the position of Brahma by engaging in your duties in the Varnashram system for 100 years without making one mistake.
100 years or 100 lives?
I'm sorry, 100 lifetimes without making one mistake. without making one mistake, 100 lifetimes. Then you can become Brahma. Or you can get it by becoming a pure devotee of Krishna. And this Brahma here is a pure devotee of Krishna.
So that means he got the devotee association in the previous life?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, and performed devotional service before. Which is another example of how powerful the association of pure devotees is.
It seems that you're always brought back, we are always brought back to that point, right? To
Rati Manjari says it seems they were always brought back to this point
the importance of the association.
of the importance of the association of devotees. Yes, and these purport, that was astounding feature of this purport, how Prabhupada brought it back to the association of the devotees. I liked it. The thing that made me repeat again was the first one is association of devotees, and then with the parentheses, hearing. Because we're thinking, oh yes, associating with devotees, we can hang out, go to a party together, or go on a Harinam or whatever, which is true, and that's also hearing. But association with devotees means that. Hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, the Bhagavatam, or the holy name, or performing devotional service with the devotees. And then the Srimad-Bhagavatam is also in the association of devotees, the third one.
also interesting that when you mentioned while we were reading that pure love of God had actually achieved 3 regulated devotees.
Yes, she's emphasizing the point that I emphasized earlier in the reading, and that is that Prabhupada is pointing out in this purport that it is the regulated principles of devotional service, in other words, Vidhi Bhakti, that enables one to get love of God. It doesn't disenable one. Something's happening?
Yeah, it's a question coming in.
Oh, there's a question coming in.
Yeah, so I just kind of want to show that.
Also, the second part of my thought was that
The second part of Shamagori's point is
that in reality,
that in reality,
regulated devotional service and Raganuga Bhakti is actually, from an external point of view, looks the same.
not only that, not only do they look the same, regulated principles of devotional service in Raga Bhakti or Raganuga Bhakti, but they're within the same category. Wait, one more thing.
Sorry.
One more thing, then I'll get to the question. See, Rupa Goswami categorizes the kinds of bhakti, sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, and prema bhakti. And within the category of sadhana bhakti, there's 2, Vaidhi and Raganuga. So Raganuga bhakti is actually in the category of devotional service and practice, or sadhana bhakti. But they're trying to make that something else, and disassemble or pry them apart, and saying one is not good and therefore you have to stop it in order to get. But they're not taking into consideration enough that only by the practicing of the regular principles can you become purified enough to actually taste the spontaneous aspect of devotional service and practice. And that comes to your point, which is, even if a person is in Raganuga Bhakti, externally they act as if they are a neophyte. And if they don't, it means they're not in Raganuga Bhakti. They're pretending. Yeah. Okay, we have a question from cyberspace.
Yeah, from Yadudama Das.
From Yadutama.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Yadutama.
He says, writing from my wife's phone, is there a difference between good luck, fortune, and the mercy of the Lord?
Is there a difference between
Good luck
good luck
Slash fortune.
/ fortune
and the mercy of the Lord.
And the mercy of the Lord. No. You can't be fortunate without the mercy of the Lord. That's what was said in the purport very clearly. You can't be actually fortunate. You may think you're fortunate because you're properly situated in the material world, or you have achieved, some kind of opulence, and thereby you're thinking that you're getting something of value, of real value, but all those things are ephemeral.
So then Krishna says that good luck to you, that means I'm actually giving you my mercy.
Yes, and he said also in one of the purports that we read tonight, if you're really getting fortunate, he'll take everything away from you. And then if you try again, he's so fortunate, it's such a good friend that he'll take away again. Until, all your friends and relatives just, reject you because you're not giving them money or giving them security and all of those things. And then you have no other choice than to take shelter of the Lord. So if a person's a devotee, sincere devotee, and is still attached to material things, and Prabhupada used his own example in this. Of course, we know that Prabhupada is a liberated soul from birth, but sometimes they act out these things, as we talked about in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's disappearance day the other day. Prabhupada, he was qualified to become very, very wealthy and very, very influential in India. We met, Giriraj Swami and myself, we met a very aristocratic person, old money, Indian money, old aristocratic family from Gujarat, Pranlal Bogilal, and very wealthy, one of the wealthiest families in India, and there's some very wealthy families in India, old money wealthy families. And we came there to get some help because, anyway, there was something about the temple going on, and we were seeking assistance, not just money, but support for our position. And he told us in the course of the conversation that you don't know who your Prabhupada was. We saw him, He was so expert that he could have been a Birla. He could have been as rich as the Birlas. That's why, of course, he is who he is, a rich aristocrat, so he may see a little bit through that lens, But, yeah. And then Krishna took everything away from Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was thinking, he was dedicated, he was sincere. Obviously he was sincere. He was dedicated to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's instruction. And he meditated on it for the rest of his life. But first he was thinking he would make a lot of money, and then he would use that money to, fulfill the order. And Krishna said, no, you don't need any money. And he took it all away. And Prabhupada just kept on going. Interesting. And then as soon as he was tested, then Krishna gave him everything. And by the time he left, he must have been one of the wealthiest persons in the world, because he had houses everywhere and everything belonged to him, the whole movement. It was big. Everywhere he went, hundreds of devotees would come out and throw flowers and chant and dance and, nobody, everywhere. Yeah, I can tell you, one time in New York in 1976, I was kind of one of the devotees that was in the back all the time doing the work in the back, especially the finances and that kind of work, and management, that kind of thing. So one day, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, we were in the New York temple room, and Prabhupada was there, and it was time to put on the tilak, or on the chandan on Prabhupada's forehead. He handed me the thing. He said, "You do it."